Welcome to another episode of the Business Everyday Show. I am your host, Jonathan Wilms, and today in the studio, we have a friend of mine that I've known for an extremely long time. Our families have been friends and things all together. It's been a joy and a wonder to watch you grow up and find your niche, and I get to have you on the show now and talk to you about the industry that you are most interested in. So, my friend, Wyatt, welcome to the show
How
today.
we doing?
Come on. Wyatt,
Yes.
what is the industry that you are interested in, and where have you pursued, and where has that gone for you, my friend? Like, you can take that in any direction that you want, but like, what are you interested in, my friend?
Yeah. My main interest and I guess industry that I like to, pursue and stay in is it's audio engineering.
Audio engineering. Now, do you have a background in audio engineering? I mean, I know you're almost 21. Did you have university experience in audio engineering? Is this personal project passion? Where does that come from?
Yeah, I mean, so I didn't really go to like school or anything like that. Just kind of how it kind of came to be was just through my desire for music, stuff like that. Growing up, I started, learning drums and guitar and stuff like that.
Every
And
kid's dream to play the drums.
exactly. And so from there, just through my church, doing extra stuff there, like just in the audio spectrum and stuff like that. Just learning the consoles that were at my church, and then through some of the people there, got to know them, and they kind of helped me just start from there and traject from what I could do there and just my musical capabilities and understandings, and just it kind of grew from there.
Were you one of the kids that always had an earbud in, always listening to different bands and music? Because like I wasn't that kid, but I grew up with those were all my friends. They had now in my day the iPod Shuffle,
Right.
Like we hadn't had screens yet, like but everybody had their mix or gosh, do I even admit they had the mix CDs? And then everybody's listening to bands and comparing artists, and that led into like, dude, everybody's learning to play the drums and electric guitar to be so cool. And like, was that your experience, or was this just more of an inherent passion of, man, I love the creation of music and I want to be a part of that process?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll say I definitely like I was definitely feeding off of my siblings.
Okay.
As far as initial music goes and just listening to music and stuff like that, especially my two brothers. Just the music that they listened to, and like I saw their creativity just with what they could do. One of my brothers played the drums, the other one played the guitar.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff, and I was like, that is just so cool. And from there, kind of learning about just when I started doing it, the excessive creativity that I could produce and that could come out of me, and that was just such a raw feeling, a raw experience of just like I just had such a passion for it, and I was like, I want to do this. I want to be in this world. Like
what steered you towards like audio engineering versus the actual I'm going to say creation of music, but like being the guitar player or being the lead vocalist, or like, because those I see them as like diverting paths of like, you can either choose what I'm going to call back end music, extremely important and necessary, but then there's also like front facing music, which is I think what gets super popularized. Like, how did that crossroads work for you?
I will say, if I was to hop on like a tour or something like that, actually playing, whether that was being a drummer, a guitarist, or whatever, like I am not opposed to that at all. Like that would be
he's open, folks.
Yeah, exactly. Like that would be so fun to do, and I think that would just be such a cool experience. But excuse me. But so my kind of start was just a guy through my church. His name is Ben Ivy.
Okay.
He kind of took me under his wing and was just like, "Hey, I heard you want to do, music production. all that
Mm.
kind of stuff. He's like, I'd love for you to just intern for me. And so that's kind of how my start in that whole engineering world began.
Okay.
And so I became his intern. We would go around to, different a lot of it was churches, different
Yeah.
churches in the Atlanta area.
It's a huge need
Yeah.
in churches because you got Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday, special events, praise and worship team practice. Like,
Yeah.
there's such a need for the back end team to pull it all together because the musicians, we have no idea what
Yeah.
we're
Yeah,
doing.
100%. And so, we were helping, different size churches and stuff like that with whatever they need, whether that was, console installation,
Hmm.
or that was just, they have a problem with their, I think it's one time there was just like somebody's microphone just was not working. And so they're like, hey, we cannot figure this out. And so we just, went in and helped them
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So it was just, different things under the spectrum. And I just, I really shadowed Ben for a while, just learning what he did and what he loves to do
Hmm.
and seeing the passion that he has.
Yeah.
And he's done so many tours and
Okay. So he has been, he is a professional in the space of the audio engineering and
yes.
okay,
Yeah.
so you had professional exposure, not just a hobbyist, but a guy who's like really done the work in the trenches.
Yeah,
And
exactly. And
great.
so I'm very privileged in that and very, um blessed that I had that start to where immediately from the get-go, me being just such a like a, just green thumb, just super
Hmm.
new to the whole experience, all that kind of thing. Just that from the get-go, I had a guy like him
Yeah.
who just took me under and showed me the ropes.
When you got your start, were you 14, 15, 16? Like what was your age range for when you started getting this exposure to the audio engineering side and this mentor character is able to come in and be like, "Hey Wyatt, come with me." Like
Yeah.
are you 16 able to drive yourself everywhere or is this something your parents are investing in as well or like how does that work?
I was 18
Okay.
when I started.
Okay.
So,
So latter part of the teen years. So
yeah.
you've done the church bands, you've done help on Sunday mornings, and I mean I know this because I was there.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You did a lot of work
Yeah.
for getting exposure to equipment and terminology and
Mhm.
setups and um but then you have this guy come in and is like, "Hey dude, I see what you're doing. I like what you're doing. Come alongside me."
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. It was really just he saw, like, kinda what I could, you know, just what already like, pretty much what you said, what I already had done.
Mhm.
Just in, like, me showing up pretty much every single Sunday at my church, just playing bass or drums and everything like
Right.
that, and just, him and I would go back and forth, about things and just, like, being like, "Hey, like, did my bass sound alright, last night at
Mm.
rehearsal?" And stuff like that, and just, you know, all that kinda stuff, and so, yeah, I think we knew each other for a year or 2, something like that, and then, about the time I was graduating, he knew that I wanted to go into music production,
Yeah.
and so that was how it started from there.
Okay. What he's like, "Hey, Wyatt, I got this paid internship thing. Come on board." Or was it like, "Dude, just show up and we're gonna go do stuff and we might get some gigs or some things, but just show up and we'll make something happen."
Yeah, I mean, it was I mean, at first it was really just a, "Hey, show up,"
Okay.
type of thing, being like, "Hey, I'd love to just show you, to intro you to this kinda world and things that are going on."
Right.
Um And so, it was really a lot of it was really just basic stuff at first. And he was really just showing me the fundamentals and the things that were so um important in the beginning, and
Right.
just learning, like, hey, like, even, being such a professional and somebody who's been in this for years, you know, the things that are so fundamental about, being in this industry, he was showing me in the very beginning, and a lot of that's just being like, being just a cool guy,
Mm.
being really chill and just really, like, just having a good hang
Right.
and stuff like that. And so that was a big thing. He's just like, hey, just watch me, just be here, like,
Mhm.
just
Know
just
the culture
yeah,
and
know the culture, soak it in,
mhm.
what's going on around you, really just, yeah,
How
just do
much
that.
How much of the music industry do you think is networking and positive relationships versus skill? Because I feel like there's in my industry right now, working professionally in the IT and security spaces, is like it feels like a very buddy buddy network,
Yeah.
and like if you have a good reputation, you're very well known
Yeah.
because it's not that big of an industry, especially in the state that I work in, Tennessee, and like the music industry I think is even smaller. I mean,
Sure.
it's a huge industry, but like when you know the good engineers, you know the good
Yeah.
engineers, and when you know the okay engineers, you know those guys, and then when you're super desperate and everybody else is canceled on you and is sick in the hospital, then you're like, okay, I'll settle for this person. Like, is that how it goes, or is it like, no, as long as I have the credentials, I can get almost any gig I want?
Yeah, so definitely I will say word of mouth is so valuable
Mm-hmm.
in that industry. Just one, of course, just being able, the skill that you have is so important, and what you can provide to a crew. If you have no experience, you're not going to be able to hop onto a giant tour
Sure.
and be able to perform amazingly and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Like that's not how it'll work. So of course, you need some skill, but if you go into these places and these big tours or even smaller tours, and you're just you know you're a jerk and stuff like that, you're not going to be able to stay
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. So yeah, word of mouth is so important. Be like, hey, I know this guy's so great. Then that's almost everything
Mm.
in the world. Is just people will contact you and just be like, hey, I need I need an audio engineer, I need a front of house guy for this tour we're doing, or for this one show. Do you know anybody? It's like, hey, I got this guy. He's really great at what he does, but he's just a really nice guy, and
Hmm.
he's really fun to hang out with. He's
Right.
he's not a jerk and stuff like that.
Low drama.
Yeah.
The production's already high stress. That doesn't need to be on the team. Let's, just bring in somebody who's nice.
Exactly. So that person contacting me trusts me. I trust that guy. And so it kind of full circles where, he trusts me. I trust him. The guy contacting me trusts my guy,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
So it sounds like at least I mean it's probably broadly true, but specifically I'll say your exposure to the music industry of the audio engineering space is like, man, this is reputation based.
100%.
Okay. Is that like to me that's a little also I mean the IT space is very reputation based as well, but also it's very heavily resume skill based.
Hmm.
And like is that a scary thing to be like it seems like in your industry it's reputation first, skill second. Um versus, look at my credentials and then my personality.
Sure.
Because it feels like, and I don't know if this is true, you can tell me right or not, that it feels like there's a lot of people who are good at what you do.
Yeah.
And but then if you're a jerk, then nobody wants to work with you.
Yeah.
And even if you're, the best cream of the crop engineer, but you just can't hang with people,
Yeah.
you're gonna have a hard time getting gigs.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, it's just that's a lot what it's about.
Hmm.
And sometimes, especially when you can have names attached to yourself
Okay.
as well, like, you know, being taken under the wing of one guy, or like when I was interning for Ben, I was, I don't know if a part of Ben is the right word, but I mean, I held that, I held Ben's reputation on my end too, where
Right.
I had to live up to that. And
Mm-hmm.
the um the engineer that he is,
Mm-hmm.
and all of that, where I had to, you know resemble what he's done,
Yeah.
and I can't.
Ben's culture and Ben's reputation.
Right.
Right,
Like
right.
I can't make that look bad
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So that's what it's all about. And if he speaks good about me, and then I end up being a, terrible guy,
Mm-hmm.
then,
That's a broken trust.
yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Then, that can affect his reputation
Yeah.
and how he, moves forward and everything like that.
Mhm. Now, in your internship and your was that a formalized thing? Why, like he was like, "I come under my wing and I will train you, my son," or was it more of a this just naturally happened? I just started showing up for more gigs, and then we just loved working together, and then it developed into something awesome.
Yeah, I mean, so it was a very chill thing.
Okay.
There were some weeks where we didn't like see each other at all, and there were some where we like hung out, 3, 4 times a week, stuff like that. But a lot of it was just like if he had an opportunity, um, you know, to go somewhere, go do something, in the area, he wanted to bring me along with him,
Mhm.
whether I was working or whether I was just, watching and observing,
Mhm.
and stuff like that. And so through that and from there was he started getting a lot of tours. And so we started hanging out less, doing all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Not seeing each other as much because, he's, wherever in the country
Sure.
doing whatever. And I'm like, hey, like, are we gonna be able to hang out soon or anything like that? Like, you got anything
Please
going?
remember me.
Right. I'm like, don't forget about me. And he's like, man, I'm sorry. He's like, I'm doing this tour. And I'm like, oh man, like I
Mhm.
completely understand that. Like it's all good. But so yeah, from there, it really blossomed because he trying to think of when it was. I believe it was January, February of 2023.
Okay.
Then started working for an artist. Her name is Priscilla Block.
Okay.
Um, and so he started working for her, and doing front of house for her. And then, he would whenever he would come back and we'd hang out, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'm like, you know, doing stuff with her. Like, here's her music." And he would just show me, and I'm like, "Oh, that sounds kind of cool,"
Mhm.
and stuff like that. And then in March, he he called me one. I think it was a Wednesday afternoon. It was
Okay.
like 1 or 2 in the afternoon. Actually, no, sorry. He texted me first, and he says, "Hey, are you able to call off work this weekend?" And I mean, I was like, just like fully call out and just not show up at all. And at that time, I was just working at Chick-fil-A,
Yeah.
and so like that was it. And he's like, hang on. He's like, we have 2 shows this weekend, and we really need a guy. We need somebody to fill in for this open position that you know that
Hmm.
that got opened.
Yeah.
And so he's just like, we need just a fill in for these 2 shows. And um and so yeah, I was like, okay. I was like, so he then later he called me. He's like, hey, can you be in Nashville tonight?
Now, for context, where are you from?
Yeah, I'm from North Georgia, but
Okay.
Atlanta area.
Okay.
Nashville's about 3.5 hours from me,
Gotcha.
give or
Okay.
take.
Can you be there now? Come
Right.
on.
Yeah, he's like, can you be in Nashville at 8 or 9 p.m. tonight?
Oh my gosh.
So I'm like, yeah. And so through that, I'm like, I have this like crazy, like almost once in a lifetime opportunity. Like, I'm still very new at what I've done. I've
Mhm.
never toured before, never done anything outside of Georgia for like music at all.
Right.
And so I wasn't sure how I was gonna make work go at all, but I was like, sure, I'll do it. So,
Did you even know what tour meant? Or you just had this made up idea of like, I think you get on a bus and then you
right.
do stuff.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. It was just like, I was like, this is like the coolest thing in the world.
yeah.
Imagining, being able to, go around and just do music for your job, and stuff like that. So yeah, I definitely, didn't have a full idea or comprehension of what it meant, but I was
Hmm.
like, I knew it was just like so cool. And I was
Did
just
he
like, I want
have
to do
like
that.
a contract for you, or like he's like, hey, I'm gonna pay you $100, or like was he going to like was this an intern opportunity, or was like, hey, dude, I got a job. Show up here and you'll have a job.
Yeah, it was. I mean, if just for those 2 shows, I mean, it was essentially a job where
That's
I
awesome.
wasn't where I wasn't getting paid through Ben. I was getting paid through the artist I
The
was working
tour,
for,
the
and
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and the management
Okay,
through that. Whereas like, hey, it's what we're doing. We'll pay you that much money,
cool.
because yeah, through that it was essentially like I was, kind of like a 1099
Hmm.
type situation where I was going and doing my own job, not through Ben, even though I was working under him, and he was helping me through that, but I was
Sure.
still just going up and doing my own thing, being my own person.
Yeah, yeah. I gotcha. So you just get this call in the afternoon. You're like, yeah, I can drive 3 4 hours and like show up at this random place and go on tour with you guys doing what again? Like, did you know what you were gonna do? Like in specificity, or was it still like just show up? We need you.
Yeah, when he called me, they needed a monitor engineer.
Okay.
That was their That was the open position that
And a
needed.
monitor engineer, for those who of my audience don't know, can you explain what an audio or and monitor engineer is?
Yep. So essentially, how like professional artists, or even not professional artists, they wear headphones when
Mhm.
they perform,
Yep.
and stuff like that. Those are called in-ear monitors.
Okay.
And so it's what you listen to, it's what you play, and stuff like that. So essentially, my job, for those 2 days was, there was 5 people on the band,
Mhm.
so I had to make a mix for all 5 of those people,
Mhm.
and just making it to their liking so they could hear what they wanted to hear. The main artist,
Mhm.
she wanted to be able to especially just hear her vocals. So, that was, of course, like, the loudest thing in her ears,
Sure.
and, the drummer wanted to hear his drums, bassist wants to hear his bass, all that kinda stuff.
Wow. Yeah, because I've played in church context where every individual player, they have their own mixer board for their in-ear monitors.
Yeah.
But for production, you don't have a little mixer with you on stage.
No.
And so that's all fed back either by wire or by wireless, probably most of the time,
Yeah.
back to an monitor engineer,
Mhm.
and they have to have that's a trust relationship because you could just blow out their ears with a mix that they don't care about or hurt them.
Yeah.
Like, that's dangerous.
Yeah, it's definitely a very, you start to develop a really personal connection with the people on the band,
Hmm.
and the people you're working for, just because you're doing something that matters to them,
Yeah.
and that's important to them, and you're really kind of learning about them, learning what they like. And so, whereas if you're just doing front of house, I say just doing front of house like it's not an
It's
important
just
job,
nothing.
where
All
that
those
that
front of house engineers, just front of house.
yeah, although that's what everybody hears, but you have to build a connection with them, with
Right.
the band. And so, learning, being like, hey, like, you got to talk to them, being like,
Mhm.
hey, what do you like? If they're upset about something, they're like, hey, something's not right. You got to spend that time with them to figure out, okay, what about your guitar are you not liking in your
Mhm.
ears? Is it too loud? Is it too quiet? Is it something completely different than just volume?
Mhm.
And from there you build connections. So yeah, there has to be a massive layer of trust that
Mhm.
needs to get built. So you can trust them, they can trust you,
Mhm.
and through that, produce a good show.
Right, because, I mean, the quality of their own experience with the audio probably really directly affects their art and their ability to perform, because if they're just sitting there squinting their eyes because it's just jacked up way too loud, they're like, "He ain't gonna be able to perform very well."
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if I don't know, I mean, me and my experience of all the times I've played guitar, um, if I couldn't hear my guitar in
Mhm.
my ears, I wouldn't be able to play right
Right.
because I don't know what I'm playing. So
Mhm.
it's so valuable, it's so crucial to be able to hear what you're playing so that can go out to the crowd,
Mhm.
and for what they want to hear,
Mhm.
So it's such a, well, where it's like one of those background guys where you're like, oh, they're probably not doing much, but it's like they're almost doing everything.
Right.
And it's just like, I don't want to be like, oh yeah, I was doing everything, because, like, I really wasn't, but it's essential. You
Mhm.
can't have a show without that.
Right. A vital member of the team. So you show up in Nashville and like it goes perfectly well and everything's, sunshine and rainbows and like or is there dramas or like how is your first experience going on tour, Wyatt? Like what is that like for you? Did it match with your imagination
Yeah.
of what going on tour was, or was it completely different, or like how was that for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was really a surreal experience.
Okay.
Um, there were things about it that, like, of course I can never exactly know what going on tour was like
Mhm.
and stuff like that. But, like, the first thing I'll say is everybody on the crew that, like, as soon as I walked in onto this
Mhm.
giant tour bus that I had could only dream of going on to, and, like, just going onto it, and immediately, like, there was, 10 people around there just looking at me, and, Ben's like, "Hey, this is our, just filling guy. His name's Wyatt." Like, the entire crew was so nice
Hmm.
and so welcoming. And all of them were extremely nice people, really caring people. But no, the whole experience was, I mean, like I said, really surreal.
Yeah.
But it was so cool to see like how a show starts from the ground up, from everything being packed in a little trailer to
Right.
being wheeled into a venue,
Mm-hmm.
and everything just coming to life, and learning about how it all goes from one end to the other, how from the guitar goes into the pedal board
Mm-hmm.
to one of the little like sub snake boxes
Yep.
that feeds to me, and how that goes to the front of house board,
Mm-hmm.
all that kind of stuff, where it's just learning about all that kind of stuff and just seeing it come to life is like, it's a really beautiful thing. And it's like, that's where a lot of like creativity I found has come
Mm-hmm.
out of it too, where it's like, I'm not necessarily playing the instruments or anything like that, but it's still so beautiful.
Yes,
And
it's your
so
own art form that you still have to curate with, whether it be how you dress your cables or how you divide up your mix or how you color code everything or
yeah,
like or how you communicate with every individual spot on that team
yeah,
in order to get the best result, efficient result possible.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I love that you said color coding, because that's everything. I I loved color coding everything, and making, the drums be red, and
Mhm.
the guitars be, blue, and all of the
Yeah.
tracks were purple. It's like, oh, my
You have
favorite thing would be
everything exactly where it should be. So if I need like, oh, there's a change, I need to go do this thing with this color at this measure and move
Yep.
this slider and move that gain and like I got it.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
That's
It was
awesome.
so fun.
Now, before I continue on with the story, I have a question about you out of high school chose a route that I'm going to categorize as unconventional
Yeah.
because the conventional 21st century person, they have a track of either a certification of a college university experience. Like for you, was that even in the realm of possibility? And we're your friends, I'm going to call entrepreneurial, because what you've done is, even though it's a career path,
Mhm.
it's an entrepreneurial path,
Yeah.
because you're having to go out and build your own reputation and your own shows, and it's not, you are applying for a job, but it is very in the same realm mentally as an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
where you're having to create something.
Yeah.
And like, were you contrasted with your own friends in that they were all going university? I'm like, I'm hooking up cables doing the show thing. Like how was that for you? And was it odd, normal, like new? Like what was that like for you?
Yeah, so I'll say that was a really hard experience. It was a really hard thing to go through.
Hmm.
Um because everybody, as I was coming out of high school, you know, when you're in that, when you're that age, you start to have to figure out, okay, what are you going to do?
They tell you to figure out, but
Like,
I'm here to tell you we still don't have it figured out.
right. But even they're just like, everybody's like, hey, what's your next step? Like,
Right.
and expecting you to have a plan and stuff like that. And so, all the people around me are like, hey, yeah, I'm going to college. I'm doing this thing. I'm studying and this and everything like that. And, you know, every time I'd say, oh yeah, I'm going into music production and this is what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, okay, so what's your plan? I'm
Right.
like,
Give me the step by step, the play by play.
yeah. And my play by play was, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And like I didn't know what I was gonna do, and so that was hard, going through that, because
Hard for you, hard for your friends, hard for your parents, like
it
all of it hard.
a lot of it was hard for me,
Okay.
because you know not necessarily getting looks, but getting like people thinking like, oh man, he's like screwed.
Mm.
He's not gonna be able to, like, what is he doing with his life?
He's going off to the far country to find himself. He'll be back with the rest of us sooner or
Right.
later.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I got so many people asked me, and they're like, okay, what's your backup plan?
Hmm.
Like, what are you actually gonna do? And all that kind of stuff, where people are like, and I was just like, I don't have a backup
Oh
plan.
gosh, that hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, and so, I was extremely stubborn in that, where like I stuck to my guns and what I wanted to do. I was like,
Yeah.
I know I want to do this. I'm gonna make it work,
Mm.
and I'm still trying to make it work
Right.
and stuff like that. I'm still pursuing it, but you know, there was a lot of I don't think a lot of people believed in me other than like my family
Mm-hmm.
and some really close people to me. Other than that, I think people just thought, yeah, he's gonna just be working at like McDonald's for
Yeah.
the rest of his
He's just
life.
gonna be doing the fries. But
Yeah.
how big was it getting that first tour job as a confidence boost to be like, I can really freaking do this thing?
Yeah.
Like, come on, I've shown you, I got a gig.
Yeah. I mean, that was huge and it meant everything to me.
Are you like taking selfies everywhere, texting them to friends and family, like, I'm here?
Yeah, I remember I can't remember if I was in a relationship at that time or not. I think I might have been. But either like my girlfriend or somebody I was talking to
Yeah.
just being like I think I was on the phone with them outside and I was like, hang on, I gotta send you this photo. And I just sent them a picture of the tour bus. And I was just like, look at this thing. I was like, I sleep on that. And but it was so cool. And so, like fast forwarding a little bit, just a couple days,
Mm-hmm.
I had to drive when, our tour bus arrived back in Nashville. I like quickly hopped into my car
Mm-hmm.
and I had to drive back to Chick-fil-A where I was working.
Right.
And so I had contacted a couple of the managers there and I was like, hey, like this thing happened to me. I might be a little late for my shift
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. And they're like, hey, you're good. Like I was super thankful for that. They like made it work and made it so like they were really flexible.
Right.
But so yeah, from Nashville, I had to immediately go into my like, 8-10 hour shift
Oh
and
gosh.
working and stuff like that. But even then, like everybody was asking me like, where were you like the past couple days? Like what were you doing?
It's like, I was on tour, baby.
Exactly. And I was just like getting to share that was like that just meant so much where I was like, I'm like it was like it was a confidence boost of like and reassurance that as a I knew what I wanted to do.
Mm.
And I knew that this was something I wanted to do.
It's working.
Yeah. But yeah, it was working, but it was fun. And it
Mm.
was like what I was passionate about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that just gave me so much more confidence to keep doing that and to
Mm-hmm.
keep pursuing that.
Mm-hmm. And how cool that if I'm hearing everything correctly, that your mentor Ben
Hmm.
was on the tour as well.
Yep.
And so, if I'm getting that right, and so like you were able to jump into something that you already been doing, like because you'd done other things with Ben in Georgia, and now there's like, no, we're going official. I'm going with you out in the trenches, and we're gonna do the same thing together. And was there like this flow of like, oh, I know how you work, and I know how I work, and like you can just jump back into familiar territory, so it wasn't like starting from scratch new. There was a
Yeah.
familiarity there.
Yeah. I mean, really like the biggest thing was just I was with somebody I knew.
Yeah.
And so that was just like it's a scary thing to drive to Nashville and it would be to and get on a bus with nobody you know.
How many people live on the tour bus? I have no idea.
So typically on a normal bus there's 12 bunks.
12
Yeah.
bunks. Okay.
So depending on the bus, there's a bunk area, so that can sleep 12, and then depending on what the artist prefers, sometimes there's a back lounge just for seats, but also there can be like a bed, just
Hmm.
depending on what the artist wants. So they could want it to have the like like a trim model type of thing
Mhm.
like that, and so it could sleep 12, it could sleep 13.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm just this is completely out of my world of tour culture.
Yeah.
Like, now does that mean that the entire band and crew is only 12 or 13 people? Or is it that there's multiple buses, there's a caravan behind the bus, and you just got a VIP slot? Or like, how does that work?
Yeah, so I mean, it depends on the size of the crew and
Okay.
stuff like that. So our crew was, 11, 12 people. So we just had one bus and
Okay.
everybody just slept together or not slept together. Slept in the same bus, all that kind of stuff. But
Just for clarity.
just 100% clarity. We all had our own individual bunks. No, but
Gotcha.
so I mean, but when artists and crews and tours get bigger, that then you add buses. So sometimes it's like there's a band bus and then there's a crew bus. there's a, it could be so big where it's like an artist bus, band bus, and then tons of crew
Wow.
buses. It just, the bigger the artist gets, the bigger the,
More buses.
yep, more buses.
Wow. So has that been the largest crew that you've been a part of, a single bus, or have you been part of double bus, triple bus, quadruple bus?
Single bus so far.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the largest group so far is single bus.
Yeah.
That is so interesting. Okay, so you go from "I've made it, baby" to "I'm back at Chick-fil-A."
Yeah.
Like that is a contrast. And like, how soon after that first gig were you able to get the following gig? And like, how did you get the next gig?
Yeah. Um, so yeah, with Priscilla
Hmm.
and her crew, we
Yeah.
did those two shows. So I was with them for about, essentially like 3 days ish.
Okay,
2 full days and then, kind of like up 2 half days.
got it.
Um, give or take. And so from there, I left not expecting anything. Not
Hmm.
expecting, like,
Cool one-off chance.
yeah, just like it was just a one time really cool thing, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, back to my normal life. Um, but from there, Ben contacted me. I think it was a couple to a few weeks later.
Hmm.
They're like, because I think they had just finished a tour. I was on the last end of their tour. I think it was called the Spring Break Tour.
Okay.
So they had just finished their tour, so they had some time off. And then when they started to pick up shows, pick shows back up, um, Ben contacted me and he was like, "Hey," he's like, "We're still looking for a guy, to fill this spot, but we haven't yet." He's like, "Can you just come back out and
Hmm.
just continue to help us?" And stuff like that. It wasn't, a permanent position,
Right.
anything like that. Just like, "Hey, we still just need help." And he's like,
Like, oh, I'll have to think about it.
"Yeah,
Maybe I got this other like fries to cook.
yeah, yeah, exactly." And so, yeah. So I was like, of course. I was like, I'd love to do it. And just big props to Chick-fil-A. Just want to say I met with one of their HR people and I was like,
Hmm.
hey, here's my life. Here's what's happening. I was like, I don't want to quit because, still want to be able to work for you guys and
Sure.
stuff like that. And, just have like a safe cushion.
Hmm.
But also I was like, I'm just doing this temporary, but this is a huge opportunity for me.
Right.
And, for that time, they essentially just let me go seasonal. And so
Wow.
so yeah, that was big props to Chick-fil-A for that. They were
Chick-fil-A,
they
come
were
on.
they were
I mean, you
amazing for
don't
that.
sponsor this channel, but you could.
Yeah.
We're totally about it. I'll eat your chicken.
Yeah, exactly. And so they were really great about like helping me and making that work out. Um
That's wonderful. To
yeah.
have that is even as a, like I hope that this turns into more,
Yeah.
but just to know like, even though you don't have a quote unquote backup career plan, this is like
Mhm.
I can make rent, I can pay bills, I can
Yeah.
do this, I can do this, whatever, whatever. That whatever you need to survive.
Yeah.
If this doesn't turn into a full-time thing, like,
Mhm.
okay, I'll go back to the chicken, but we're still rooting for the tours.
Yeah, and they were all really
That's
supportive
awesome.
of me and what I was doing. So for um I think it was about like 2 or 3 months. I was going on the road with them and touring with them.
What is that like to be 2 or 3 months on the road? Like,
Yeah.
are you guys on the bus for 2 or 3 months? Or are you hoteling? Or, like, what like, I have so many questions.
So it would really depended on like the week and like how many shows we had and where we were at and
Okay.
stuff like that. So typically, uh, d- normally it was kind of like we would have a show like Friday, Saturday.
Mhm.
And so I would leave my house Thursday night,
Okay.
drive up to Nashville, hop on the bus. We'd have a show Friday, Saturday, and then either, if there was a show on Sunday, I would come back home Monday, or
Mhm.
I'd just come home Sunday. That was
Okay.
kind of the typical thing.
Okay.
And so then,
So just weekend, we're gonna drive out, do this tour, we're
yeah,
gonna do this. Okay, so you're not like gone from your local community for 3 months.
no,
You're
no,
just
no, no.
you're a weekend warrior. I'm doing this thing on the weekends.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly, pretty much. And sometimes it was longer than that. Sometimes it was, being gone for 5 days. Sometimes it was being gone for a week,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. But yeah, it was a really, you know, kind of chill. It was really, it wasn't like, I didn't, like being gone from my entire family for the whole
Mm-hmm.
time. Um, but yeah, I was just, I could still spend time with them, but also go do this. It was
Sure.
so cool.
Now, being brought on, are most, this is a businessy question, like, are most people on tour brought on as W-2 or as 1099 contractors?
Hmm.
Or, like, how does that situation play out?
Yeah. So, um, initially, unless you're being hired for a whole tour, um, it's typically 1099.
Okay.
And so, sometimes it can just, even if you're being booked for a whole tour, it can still just be 1099.
Yeah.
But for that first little part of what I was doing with Priscilla, that was all 1099.
Okay.
And, spoiler alert, going forward about like a little less than a year, I
Mm-hmm.
start working for Priscilla again.
Mm-hmm.
But in that time, that I worked for her again, that was W-2.
Gotcha. So it kind of just depended on probably also by the artists and their management company on how they want
Hmm.
to handle contractors and you know, weekend tours and things like that
Yeah,
versus long term. Okay.
100%. Because at that time, I wasn't really on her crew.
Right.
I was just, I wasn't like hired by her company. I was just working for her.
Right.
So yeah, just doing 1099 type
Okay.
stuff.
Okay. Gotcha. Now, do they give you a daily rate with like per diem, or do they give you hourly, or like what is the pay structure with contracted artist workers, bees who
Hmm.
do things?
So yeah, it can depend, but the most common one, I feel, is it's per show. So
Okay.
you get paid per show, and stuff like that. Or if you're having like a travel day, you have like travel pay and then per diem, all
Oh,
things like that.
okay.
So
So you kind of like three or four different pay rates. Like you have like, okay, hey, we're doing this show and we're gonna do it for X amount of dollars, and then we have per diem because you're away from the home, and then you have, oh, actually, we're gonna be traveling this far, so we're gonna go, give you this rate.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly. But yeah. So that's exactly how it was.
Okay.
Where travel days, whether it was like a fly day or just a really long day traveling on the bus, it
Mm-hmm.
would typically it would pretty much be about half of your pay.
Mm-hmm.
Half of your show day pay is
Okay.
about how much like you're traveling with. That's at least what I experienced.
Sure.
Um,
There's gonna
and
be some
then
people in the audience that are music people are gonna be like, "What? You got half?" And the
yeah,
other people are like, "Dude, you only got half."
yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, so that's about how it ran.
Now, I'm gonna ask an industry question because I just don't know. Do you know why do they do buses and not fly everywhere? Is it a cost thing? Because it feels like you're gonna spend so much money on fuel and I mean, you need to get your gear there and things like that, but you could just pay somebody, some schmuck. Sorry if you're the schmuck, like driving the equipment to the place, and you get there way faster, and then I don't. Driving's dangerous,
Yeah,
especially if you're driving with your whole band. Like
yeah,
I don't know how
yeah.
many,
It
like
can
what the
be.
statistic is here, but there's probably a lot of bands that have died
Yeah.
just by touring.
No. Yeah. I mean, yeah. There. I mean, that is a scary thing, and it's kind of like when you're touring on a bus, you don't think about those things.
Got it.
You don't like if you're sleeping on the top bunk and you're 7 feet in the air,
Mm-hmm.
you don't think about the bus possibly like going off the road,
Oh,
and
good. Do you have a
you
seatbelt when you're in the bunk, or you just like
no, you're free
you're just
flowing.
free?
Yeah. So
Oh,
you
Lord.
it's kind of one of those things that it's like don't think it, don't say it, don't think it, don't say it. Where I yeah.
Oh my gosh, that has led me to is there like bus ritual culture where everybody does like, okay, we all touch the door on the way in, and then good karma for driving this or driving that. Like, does that create like rituals or anything around like I don't even know. It's just
You,
this thought of like everybody doesn't say the thing.
it could there could be that. I didn't experience
Okay,
that, but I mean, I did.
because you worked in good environments.
Exactly. I worked in amazing environments, but yeah. So like that was definitely a thing where like just like hey, just don't think it, don't say it. Like
Hmm.
you know, it's not like it was like a hey, don't say it at all, but
Yeah, it was just like everybody knows the risks, but we don't talk about it.
yeah, it's like why would you want to think about that?
Hmm.
Why would you want to think about the bus just
Just
flipping
tumbling and there's 7
20
other
times.
bodies falling on top of me. Like, oh goodness.
Yeah, exactly. Like we've heard the horror stories from different artists and
Oh man.
how
Oh
all
man,
that
I
has
want to talk
happened.
to one of those people at some point. But so it's probably a cost thing.
Yeah. I actually don't know, and I don't know like the exact answer.
Hmm.
But I definitely think it's probably is like a cost thing.
If you know in the audience, write it in the comments below because I'm so curious. Is like, is it purely a cost thing, or is it a safety thing, or is it maybe even it's a administrative thing? Because then you have to get everybody's passports and do
Yeah.
all that stuff.
And I definitely think one thing definitely it could be like a comfort thing as well,
Oh,
where, instead of having to, after every single show and you're tired and everything like that, you got to hop in a taxi, go to the airport, go through TSA, all those things, hop on a
mm,
plane.
wise.
You're
Yeah.
not really like where are you going to sleep,
Mm-hmm.
you know? It's like it's like the bus
In the
really
first class ward of the airplane, of course, Wyatt.
Right. Exactly, but it's so that's when the bus really becomes your home and it's like it's your second living place. And
Mm.
so that's where you can relax and wind down and do all those things. So I think that's a big thing and also community too. I
Yeah,
mean,
you're doing it together.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so true like when people say um, you know, that like the people you work with becomes your family, stuff like that. But
For
it's
better or for worse.
yeah, but it's 10 times true
Yeah.
on the road.
Hmm.
It's
I mean,
because
you get 24/7 exposure.
exactly. I mean, like they truly become your family and become such meaningful people
Hmm.
to your life. Where I think about so many times I've had conversations with people, the people I worked with until like 5 in the morning. Everybody went to bed and it's just, one guy and me, and we're just sitting across from each other on the bus and
Hmm.
we're just talking
Yeah.
and we're just having, really meaningful, deep conversations.
I wonder if there's a huge segment of the industry that stays within that industry for the community. That
Sure.
it's not just the job that they enjoy, but it's like, man, where else do you get this um I'm going to call it college dorm experience where
Yeah.
you get to live together, breathe together, eat together and you get to share these moments and you get to do that not just as a young teen, young 20, but like you get to do this as an adult and
Yeah.
like deal with real problems and real things and
Hmm.
share life together. Like that's going to be really attractive and gravitas to pull you back to.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, you're completely right in that, and just like I think dorm room experience is a great way to put it because I mean, you're confined to this small little kind of room,
Mhm.
and stuff like that, and so you learn about their lives and you
Mhm.
learn about what they've gone through or like what they're going through, different things like that. You learn what kind of food they like. You learn that they like to have a red Solo cup with peanut M&Ms, pretzels, hot Cheetos, like just all combined into one.
Right.
And so, you just learn these things and it's just, they
Yeah, you
be
get to know them like the most personal as you could get to know someone.
yeah, yeah, really. And,
Mm.
my you still, you can be on the other side of the country or on the other side of the world and you still have things going on at home that you're dealing with and
Mm.
that are, real life things that are happening. Whether it's in your family or it's in your friends and it's hard. And so you be there for the other people on your crew, but also you have the people that are there for you as well and
Mhm.
stuff. And that happened to me, personally. I
Yeah.
I had a bunch of experiences where I'm like, we're done with, setup and sound check, and I'm just like, I go to a room inside the venue, and I'm like, not necessarily crying, but I'm like, man, I'm like, what am I gonna do? Or
Yeah.
like these things are happening and stuff like that, and I, have people come up to me and be like, hey, like, you all right? What's going on?
Mhm.
And they'll sit down with me and they'll talk with me,
Right.
even though they could be doing any other thing. There
Mhm.
there's such a community there
Yeah,
that's
that's
so
awesome.
valuable.
Hmm. So you go from you had your first tour experience, you get a couple of shows,
Yeah.
then you go to a longer term experience
Hmm.
where you're on for a full season,
Yeah.
right? So that's like what, 3, 4 months?
Yeah. Pretty much.
Okay. And then you you are getting to the end of that section of the tour, and you're like, okay, it's wrapping up. What am I doing next? Like, what are you thinking, and like, how do you manage within yourself? Like, I'm going to go back to fast food.
Yeah.
Like, or was that the prospect, or was like, man, I've met so many people, in the last 3 months. This is my golden ticket. I'm out. Like, I'm gonna be able to do this full time from here on out because I've met so many people. I'm gonna call this person, that person, and I'm gonna find work.
Yeah. Um so yeah, so at the end of my like little first term of working with Priscilla, um they had finally hired um somebody for that position. And that
Okay.
was kind of when I came off. And I was totally, totally okay with that because that's what I agreed to
Right.
and everything like that. It was sad because I had made really close connections,
Mm-hmm.
but even, hopping
No, but
yeah, even
yeah.
hopping off that tour, like everybody still kept in contact with me,
Cool.
and stuff like that, and that meant a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, like I did have to go back to Chick-fil-A,
Okay.
and that was it was a humbling experience, being like feeling like I'm on top of the world, and then going back down and being
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, here's just gotta go make some chicken
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And so, but I did have a mindset of I was like, okay, what do I do next? Like, what can I do to keep pursuing that goal and pursuing that dream? But nothing really happened for a while.
Okay.
And
And a
stuff like
while being a month, a week, a year.
that. Nothing. Yeah, for probably 3-4 months.
Wow,
Yeah.
so a chunk of time to where
Hmm.
you go like, "Am I ever gonna be able to do this again?"
Yeah. So yeah, nothing really happened. I After about 3-4 months, Ben was still there for me. He was still on that tour.
Okay.
Um, but he was still there for me and just helping me out if I ever needed something. And so I was kind of doing little, just like little gigs around Atlanta and stuff like
Mm.
that. I started, um, doing stuff for this nightclub in Atlanta,
Oh, right.
which, that wasn't exactly where I wanted to be, but I still learned so much from it. And I, just coming in, doing my job, doing audio stuff. I was front of house
Right.
for the thing, doing just Friday nights, just they had a live band come in and I did it,
Mhm.
did front of house and stuff like that. So I was doing a little bit of that. You know, so I had one opportunity where I went and did a show, um, I had to drive to Nashville for it, but then I drove to Memphis. Um,
Okay.
or I drove to Nashville, went with this band, and then we drove to Memphis. We like met and we all got into like a little like church van and drove over there.
A little different than a big tour
Yeah,
bus.
exactly. It was a little different. But yeah, I did front of house just one show because they were possibly going to start a tour,
Mhm.
and stuff like that, and they were like trying to find a guy and stuff like that, and so did one show, and they actually wanted me.
Mm.
They were like, "Hey, we would love to have you on this tour," and stuff like that. But it was around that time. I think this was October, November
Okay.
time. When I actually had agreed to it. Agreed to the tour.
Wow.
Yeah, and then it was just like a week or two later, Priscilla called me. Um,
Hmm.
and she's like, hey, she's like, she's just like first just asking like how I was doing and everything like that, how I've been, and we had kept in contact just a little bit.
Sure.
Um, but she was like, hey, um, we have this tour coming up, next year, everything like that, and just you know, she's like, I loved having you on with me and stuff like that, and I
Mhm.
would love for you to be a part of it. And
Whoa.
so like that was really big. That was like I was like, holy crap. I was like,
I've made it.
yeah, yeah, very much so. Whereas like, she contacted me October, November, and it was like, you'd start in January. We'd love to have you in January. So yeah, I was like, I just remember like getting off the phone and like going to my mom. I was like, I got it. Like I was like, I
Ah!
did it. I was like, I don't know how this happened, but and I had to call the artist that I was originally gonna work for. His name's Jay Allen. I had
Mhm.
to call him. I was like, hey, I had this like this is the opportunity that happened that that arised that I
Mm-hmm.
have with Priscilla and stuff like that. And he was super great. He's like, of course. He's like, go for that. Go do that. He was super supportive, and like we've kept
Mm.
in contact just a little bit, just checking up on
Sure,
each other
sure. That's cool.
and stuff like that. From there, I started, just getting really excited, just getting like prepared and all that kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and pretty much the touring kind of started in December.
That is so cool. Now, question for you in regards to like, um, you have a passion for the audio engineering and doing the thing, but how have you found like would you have been just as happy if you were in the death metal genre? If you would have been in this genre because there's like so many different
Yeah.
genres of music and like how does an artist professional, an engineer professional, how do you find the open opportunities, but also find them within your genre of interest? Or do you be picky? I mean, because you got nightclub. I mean,
Right.
like, do you just go where the opportunities are, or do you pick? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So at least for the realm, or like the level I was at, and still am, um, where, when the gig comes up, you kind of just take it
Okay.
and stuff like that. Especially when it gets, when the actual touring level comes up, you take that.
Mm,
Um, just you try and just get anything and everything, because, chances are, you know, if you're working in the country scene and you do 20 festivals in 4 months,
mm-hmm.
you're gonna see the same people.
Mm-hmm.
And then say the next year you're working with a death metal band
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to these death metal festivals, chances are you're gonna see some of the same people you saw last year,
Okay.
because that
They
the
cross contaminate.
yeah, they can.
Okay.
And so, like it's such a small world where
Mm.
you just, it may seem like there's a lot of people, but there's really not.
So what people are just looking for the tours, looking for good culture, and probably the teams kind of follow them each other around,
Hmm.
and they like, hey, I really like working with Brandon, or
Absolutely.
and everybody picks up Brandon,
Yeah.
and then it was like, but it really almost doesn't matter the artist or the genre or like, no, no, we're gonna create a crew that's just stellar, and we're gonna go around and do our thing.
Yeah. That can
Okay.
that can definitely be a thing. Or, I know people who have, been hired for a different, genre and stuff like that, and they're like, hey, like, and um that artist or that band has an open position where like we need this to be filled, you know, in that crew, they can personally hire somebody else, be like, "Hey, I love working with this guy. I'm gonna bring him in,"
Hmm.
and stuff like that. And so that's, that can happen too.
If you say no to certain gigs or tours based upon let's say principles of like, hey, that band just represents a culture that I don't agree with,
Hmm.
or like, if you say no to something like that, are you blacklisted within the industry, or is there a lot of grace for like, hey, it's just not his flavor of ice cream, like, he's a great engineer, pick him up on a different tour.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I can't say I've experienced like that firsthand,
Yeah.
but definitely, I mean that I don't think people hold, um, hold it against you if you say no to a tour or something like that, because
Mm-hmm.
you try you do try not to get into much of the like drama,
Mm-hmm.
in it as you can,
Right.
and try not to be like, oh,
As much as you can.
yeah, or like, yeah, no, I don't want to work for you because of this principle. Sometimes like you just say no, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, you don't
So
always have to point out why and for what reasons. Like, man, your hair color is just not my vibe,
yeah,
and so you change that, or I'm not on the tour.
yeah, and so yeah, and sometimes it's more wise to just say yes and to do the tour, do your job,
Hmm.
and stuff like that. And then the bigger you get, the more the more comfortable you can be, just um finding jobs, then you can say no.
Be a little more choosy about
Yeah,
like, I'm going to say
exactly.
no to this and yes
Hmm.
to this and no to that. Okay.
Yeah, it's just very important to, into whatever situation you're going in, just going in with open hands
Yeah.
and be like, hey, here I am to help. if I need to do extra, I can.
Be helpful, be kind, be respectful,
hmm
and then you will be respected, and you'll have more opportunities
hmm
in the industry.
And you'll be called a good hang. Like that. So that's what it's all
That's the
about.
goal.
That's what it's all
That's
about.
always the goal.
That's the fundamental.
So you get brought on tour, and can you describe to me like this is when you were converted into a dub 2,
Yep.
and then like you're an employee of a band
Yeah.
or of a management company,
Yep.
and how many shows are in a typical tour? And like, did you stay local? Did you go country? Like what happened to you?
Yeah. So the first probably 4 months was crazy.
Okay.
For 4 or 5 months was crazy for me. Um, I started back with Priscilla in December of 2023.
hmm
And she was doing 3 shows as one of the openers for Old Dominion.
Okay.
And so that was probably still some of the craziest shows I have ever done because those were in arenas. So
Mm,
here I am, like I felt like this little kid, just like, hey, we're not playing in bars and small theaters.
right.
We're playing in front of like 15-20,000 people.
Wow.
And
This ain't
so
no small town thing. This is
yeah,
production.
yeah. And I'm like, am I in the right place?
Mm.
And stuff like that. So yeah, that's how it started. We did 3 shows, and that ended the whatever Old Dominion's tour was called. No Bad Vibes. I think that's what it was.
Okay.
So that ended Old Dominion's tour. So like that was it for December. And then I think it was the end of January or the start of February that started Priscilla's Hey Jack tour.
Okay.
And so that was, I don't want to ballpark or like over exaggerate how many shows, but I think it was between like maybe 20, 30 shows, something like that. Could have been more, could have been
In
less.
3 months?
Give or take, yeah.
Oh my
Like,
goodness.
yeah.
So you were doing a show what, every 2-3 days? Am I doing that math right? That's 10 per month. There we go.
Yeah, I mean, roughly about it.
So
So,
once every 3 days. Yeah.
yeah.
That
And
math checks out.
so it was pretty much like again, like a weekend warrior
Okay.
type situation and stuff like that. But a lot sometimes there was sometimes it was pretty spread out, so sometimes there was like a whole week where we didn't have a show
Mm.
and stuff like that. Or
What do you do when you don't have a show? You just sit in the bus in a Walmart parking lot? Like, what do you do?
I actually have done that before.
Oh, gosh.
I've done that for a day. Sit at the bus in a Walmart parking lot.
Oh, man.
But so but I mean, yeah, I mean if it's like a week like that, we'll come back home. But
Oh, okay.
so sometimes I think the longest I was gone for was about 2 weeks. And that was
Wow.
we did a whole like West Coast run, stuff like that. Started in California, we started in San Diego, and then we worked our way up. And I think we ended that run in Seattle.
Okay.
And then from Seattle we flew back home.
Finally using the air transport.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was so fun. Was like we flew from, I think I flew out of Atlanta, but everybody else flew out of Nashville, and then we landed in San Diego.
Okay.
And then then the bus met us over there.
Oh,
So
gotcha.
yeah.
Okay, so you didn't have to take the long, laborious drive across country.
No, that would have been rough, and
A bus going 50 miles an hour, 52 hours later, whatever it is.
yeah, I mean, yeah, those bus rides they take a long time,
Oh,
and
man.
for the bus drivers, and be praying for all the bus drivers
Bless
out there.
them.
Yeah.
Ooh.
But yeah, so we started the Hey Jack tour, going over there, and it was just, the West Coast was such a wild experience.
Yeah.
Super cool though.
Have you been on that side of the world before? West Coast US?
Once or twice.
Okay.
Yeah, but not long and stuff like that.
So like this is a concentrated multiple month exposure to West Coast culture.
Yeah.
And you're from Southeast US.
Yep, exactly.
How was that for you, my friend?
It was so cool. The one thing I always say is just like I wish I could have spent more time over there, or
Yeah.
spent more time in the locations I was when I was touring. and stuff like that. Because some of the days, you're in a building for the entire day.
Right.
You're just in the venue. But the days off we did get, you know, just exploring the different cities and stuff like that. Like,
Hmm.
you know, going to a Chili's and watching the Super Bowl with with just your new family. It's just like
Mm.
those experiences are they're so cool, and you don't trade them for anything.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, so pretty, so beautiful. Like, I love the Northwest. Just
Agree.
seeing all that stuff over there, and
My
like,
wife's from the Northwest. I get it. Like it's an awesome, beautiful place.
yeah. So like having a day off in Seattle was just so cool.
Hmm.
Just like seeing all that, like the city, and just the mountains in the background. It's
Come
just
on.
so pretty, so cool.
Yeah. So after that 3-month stint of touring,
Mm-hmm.
did you know that you were going to have a second run, or was that the end of the job, or how did that play out? Because it feels like to me that um, audio engineering ends up being just, it might have regularity to it, but there's a lot of just like, it's contractual seasonal work.
Yeah.
Almost like, a raft guide or something like, hey, we know that 8 weeks out of the summer, we're going to be doing this job. And we know that 4 weeks out of the fall, we're going to be doing this job. And like, it's consistent, predictable enough to where you can create, some sort of financial plan or something like that. But there's a lot of, it feels like to me, even from your story, like you're just riding from gig to gig to gig. I mean, that's in some way a thrilling experience. And in other
Yeah.
ways, if you're like saving up money to buy a car or something like that, that could be like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely it can be kind of a um like seasonal esque type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Where you think about like when artists have their tours and stuff like that, and you're like, when is the most popular times for that? That's in the fall or in the spring, stuff like that. That's like that's the most popular times,
Okay.
and stuff like that. But then during the summer, like that's really busy for audio engineers and bands, because that's when all the festivals want to book you and stuff like that.
Oh,
Doing all that,
festival summers.
yeah, doing all that outside work and
Ooh,
stuff like
that's hot.
that. Oh, yeah, really hot. um, yeah, those nights on the bus being really sweaty are not fun.
Mm.
So, but so yeah, I mean that's kind of how it is. A lot. Just the summertime is really busy and stuff like that. Spring and fall are really busy, and winter is when it kind of dies down.
Okay.
Some artists have tours going on.
They have a Christmas tour or
Yeah,
something like that. Got
going
it.
on through that time, or some artists are like, hey, we're gonna take that, use it to our advantage, and go to Europe or something like that. Like
Oh,
I know artists who are doing that right now, in the time of December and January and February,
right.
that they're over in Europe right now.
So interesting. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm so out of touch with band culture. I've been to, I think, 1 or 2 concerts in my entire life. Like, so it's not a culture that I'm just super familiar with. Not
Right.
opposed to, just not familiar with.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, yeah, we had this like, I have another guest on the show, who's an LD. His name's Matt, and it's like he was like, yeah, and we did this show, and I toured here, and I went to this country and did that thing. I'm like, there was that many people who are going to shows?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just so out of touch. And so to hear, like, even, we did a Europe tour and we did this,
Mhm.
I'm like, oh my goodness. Like,
Yeah.
who's going to the shows? I mean, I listen to some music on YouTube, but like,
Right.
who's going to shows?
Yeah, and that was a really crazy experience for me too, because in March of last year, I got to go to like the UK, and then
Whoa.
and then Australia as well, within like a 2 week time frame and stuff like that.
That's wild for
Yeah,
working with your artist.
yeah, working with Priscilla, we did it was essentially like festivals. So, and it was called C2C and CMC.
Okay.
So like country to country, and then country music concert, I think, or something like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so over in the UK, it was CMC, or sorry, no, C2C. Um, and so it was bringing in a bunch of country bands and country artists and stuff like that. And
Even the UK wants country music from America.
yeah, exactly. And I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, I just would not imagine, Glasgow, Scotland would be interested in anything country music or anything like that.
Do they wear cowboy hats too?
Yes, they do. Yeah, they're doing the full thing. The full thing. I'm like, I'm like,
Full
man,
Texas Ranger, got the
y-
chaps and everything. Oh my
yeah.
goodness.
I mean,
Oh,
they're
I need to go to a country music festival in Scotland.
yeah.
That would be
I mean,
hilarious.
but they were just it's so cool because that culture over there like loves it, loves country music. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm like, we were one of the opening bands, in London
Mhm.
for I think headlining that tour with I think it was Brad Paisley.
Okay.
Um, but still imagine like I was like what people in London are gonna, listen to the country music, but it was a crazy experience in London. So many people were singing Priscilla's songs and just like screaming them. And I'm
That
like
is so wild.
I'm like, wow, even the people across the pond
Yeah.
are listening to this and being so involved in it. I'm like, it's
And
so
you're a
cool.
part of bringing it to life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so in a way they're singing your praises as well cuz like I mean that's it's you're part of the team
Sure.
to make it happen.
Yeah.
That's wild. And then you went so you did UK and then you went to Australia.
Yeah. Yeah. We went
That's a different the country down under. That's a different
e-
experience.
exactly. Yeah, that was another crazy experience.
Do the toilets actually flush the other way?
Man, a guy told me, when I told him I was going to Australia, he was like, "Pay attention to that," and then I totally forgot. So
Dude, you were the sample.
I know I had one opportunity, and I
You didn't go there for the music. You went for which way does the
yeah,
water
I
flow?
had one opportunity, and I totally butchered it to come back with
Oh my
something cool.
gosh. Totally flushed
There you
that
go.
opportunity.
Totally flushed
Oh
it.
my goodness. So you did another festival in
Yep.
Australia.
Yep.
Dude, tell me, what was that like?
Oh man, that was a really wild experience because so those festivals in Australia were outside.
Okay.
Um, and so even though it was like I think it was March, you know, down there it's pretty much summertime, so it's
Mm-hmm.
hot. Um, and so it was all outside, and I could be over exaggerating, but I feel like I remember hearing that like 80 to 100,000 tickets were sold
Oh,
for the whole
man.
festival. I mean, it was a big festival,
Mm-hmm.
granted, but I just remember like looking out for our show, and it's we're it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, looking out at our show, and just like seeing just a sea of people. Just I'm like, and I was
Whoa.
just like, wow. I mean, like it didn't end. The amount of people I saw, and I was like, that is just so cool to see all those people and and also in the middle of a set taking my in-ears out and just listening and hearing so many people sing Priscilla songs.
Hmm.
And I'm like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's like all I can say is just how cool it is because it's a surreal experience
Yeah.
to be a part of that.
How does it work for you coming from an Everest experience to North Georgia? Like you land on, on the tarmac, you come back and then you get, I'm going to use air quotes, real life.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that is your real life.
Yeah.
But then you come back and you're like, all your friends are, you know, accountants or, I don't know what your friends are, but like
Right.
they have this like, yeah, what'd you do last weekend? It's like, watch some more anime,
Right.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then you're like, "Oh, I did the show and there's a sea of people. You can't see it end. And like, your Instagram is a little different than other people's.
Yeah.
What's that contrasting experience like for you to come from just these wild experiences on tour to, you know, family home farm life?
hmm Yeah. I mean, I don't know if humbling is the right word,
Yeah.
but it also is just it is a very it's honestly kind of just a good feeling,
Mm,
because like yeah, you're traveling and you're doing so much, but it's very relaxing to just be home
mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. Like you do get homesick
Mm,
and stuff like that. Um, but I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a it is a weird experience coming back from all that. Everybody's like asking questions like, "What did you do? Like, how was it? How did it go?"
yeah.
and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, coming home, I'm trying to remember like how it was, but I mean, it just eventually you kind of get used to it.
Yeah.
You get used to the feeling, and it's like it's just like Yeah, just relaxing, just coming back home is
There's a
relaxing.
theory out there that says it's a psychology theory that says that whatever your environment is, you get used to it and it becomes completely normal in 6 months.
Hmm.
And I think it's true. Like experientially, I think it's true because like whether or not you make this much money, you live in this house, you do this thing, it's like at some point within a 6 month to I'll even extend it out to a year period, that just becomes normal.
Yeah,
And it's somebody else's dream,
yeah,
but it's just normal.
yeah.
Like I remember I have a photo of my first week at my job where I'm in a server room and it's just these rows of servers and the blue blinky lights and I think of that I am the coolest person ever because like I'm in a server room. This
Right.
is so awesome. There's like stuff happening on these machines.
Yeah.
And then I like stopped myself even not that long ago. I walked in and out of server room, grabbed my thing, did my my little repair or this like that, and walked out. And I was like, it did not even phase me at all. I was
Yeah.
like, this is not cool. This is not like it's just like this is my job,
Right.
and it didn't even like penetrate my psyche, my brain to be like, this is wild.
Yeah.
This is weird, and
Yeah.
weird being like different from like I don't know many people who do this
Hmm.
thing. And, like, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, no, that's so true. Because eventually, yeah, it does kind of get to a point where you're just going and you're doing your job.
because I think about being on a tour bus and being backstage and seeing seas of people, and I'm like, "That's so freaking awesome!" Why? I'm like,
Yeah.
"What? I want to
Yeah.
see pictures after the show." Like, what? This is crazy. And
Right.
he's just like, "Yeah, I mean, I do the thing," and I'm like, that ain't normal. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what normal is, but
Sure.
that,
Yeah, and you find comfortability in all that too, where it's like I've mentioned so many times about like, the tour bus being your home and those people being your home and
mm-hmm.
family and stuff like that. Like that's so real. It's like, there are times where like I was home and I was like, man, I really want to just go be on a tour bus right now.
Yeah,
And I'm like, I really want to just go spend those time with that people. And so like I'd get excited to leave home and like, do my 3.5 hour drive to
the rush is
Nashville.
coming back.
Yeah, exactly. But then you step inside the bus and you see everybody and like we're all just like chilling, eating snacks and stuff like that. I'm like,
Yeah,
this is just I'm like, you're back in it again. It's just you find
that's awesome.
comfort in it. And it's just a fun experience.
So going from that in 2024, or at least the first half of 2024, like where are you today?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, insider information that I know, like, but like for the audience sake, like where are you at today in
Yeah.
regards to what's your next tour, what's your next project, where are you going, what are you waiting for, like where are you at right now?
Yeah. I mean, so I'm definitely like I'm not touring right now.
Okay,
That's that like the position I'm in, not touring
are
and
you on an off season or are you currently without a band to tour with?
without a band to tour with.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, and so working in that, still just trying to find different gigs
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that and stuff. And it's kind of hard in the time frame, going through the holidays
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff where there's not a lot happening.
Gotta gear up
Um,
for festival season again.
yeah, exactly. And so I I have potentials of things coming up
Sure.
and just keeping my fingers crossed, hearing waiting to hear back from people
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of keeping your fingers crossed about it and being like, hey, if like this position comes up, I'll call you and be like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, can you call me now?
Right.
And
I
stuff
would
like
really
that.
like to have something on the schedule.
Yeah.
Is
So
it a pretty common experience that you have found with other audio engineers that there's just the career comes with a territory of uncertainty where you have a connection with an artist, you have a job, but it's not a career in the sense that you may not get 10 years with that artist.
mhm,
Like some people might, they might,
yeah,
with I'm trying to think of a long-standing Rolling Stones. They
yeah,
had they might have had the same engineering crew for 20 years,
yeah,
but that might be an uncommon thing where it's like more people have like I have you for a year and
mm,
then you go find another band or another gig or something like
yeah.
that. Is that more the common experience?
So yeah, I mean, it definitely is, especially for the level
Mm,
I'm at,
okay, gotcha.
where it's like still like trying to like solidify your name and putting it out there, so
Hmm.
like having people contact you and stuff like that. And the longer you're in it, and the longer you're doing it, the less like scary and the less risky it becomes, and the more you're like, hey, I
Mm-hmm.
actually I have a I have a career and
Yeah.
everything like that.
Like you were saying earlier, having more opportunity to say no to stuff where you
Yeah,
can just like if someone calls like, yes, what is it?
yeah, exactly. Sometimes like you just have to put your yes first before anything else.
Okay.
And stuff like that. I mean, and so yeah, I mean, the longer you do it, the more, jobs come your way, the more like financially stable you can become, all that kind of stuff. And, eventually, you can't get put on a salary and
Hmm.
being in that realm other than, just show pay and stuff like that, where you're
Right.
actually getting, just a weekly pay that you know how much you're getting. And so that's how much you're making in a year.
Right. They're like, we want you so badly that we don't want you looking for anything else. This is what we're gonna pay you,
Yeah.
keep you on retainer per se.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and so yeah, I mean, like it's rare to be it can be rare to be with a crew for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I remember hearing, I think it was through Ben. Maybe it was somebody else. But just hearing about like Shania Twain's crew. Like her monitor engineer has been with her for like 12 plus years. And
Whoa.
it's like, man, how are you doing that? Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing to be in that for that long? Obviously, you're doing something right, and
Mm-hmm.
you're doing amazing at it.
Yeah.
But it's like,
Or people just don't like change. But
yeah,
there's something here.
but yeah, exactly. But it's just like so yeah, it's uncommon
Mm-hmm.
to be with them for 50 years and stuff like that. Or I mean, but it's happened.
Are there
But
artists touring for 50?
probably, yeah. I mean, I would definitely guess so. I mean,
Golly.
thinking about long time people.
Whew. That's a long time to be out there on a bus.
Yeah, I know, definitely.
I'm thinking about all the hips and the getting up and down stairs.
Yeah. Oh, I know it. Yeah.
The
Eventually,
snacks just change as the years go
yeah.
by.
Eventually, you're gonna need just like a scooter to get around places.
Just Ensure and like pain relief gummies or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh man. So Wyatt, you have come from like going on tour to I'll call it dry season
Yeah.
right now, but you got some potential, you got something in the works. We just, we're in that season of, very beginning of the year trying to get into festival season.
Sure.
Like, are you hoping to be back on tour by the end of the year? Or are you just going to pick up shows along the way? Like, what's kind of the trajectory of where this career takes you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely like I'm kind of just like open hands, ready to go
Yeah.
whenever.
Leading with the
Um.
yes, like you said.
Yeah. Exactly. And so, um. Yeah, I'm hoping to be able to do some tours this year.
Okay.
And stuff like that for whatever artist that may be and stuff like that. Just, applying for different jobs, all that kind of stuff. Doing that, but also with the through the contacts I know, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully that connections get made through that too.
Mm-hmm. Is that a discouraging process or just a no, I just know this is part of the grind? Because I can feel like, I mean, you've been top of the world experience,
Mhm.
and then you have your, I'm going to use air quotes again, unemployed season. But it's just, it sounds like it just comes with the territory that like I'm on, I'm off. I'm still and that intermediate level. I haven't gotten, that full, I've been with this band for 10 years. Um, does that feel like, nope, this is just part of the grind? I know it'll come. I just got to keep being diligent, or is it more like, golly, am I back to square one? Like, what is that experience like for you?
Mhm. So it's definitely a bit of both.
Okay.
Um, I definitely feel both. I think I feel a lot of like discouragement, and just being like, man, what do I do next? Just because I
Mm,
I feel like that's human nature.
yeah.
Just to look at things more negatively than positively,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. So I have to like battle with myself in that
Yeah.
a lot. And I'm very thankful for the people around me
Mm-hmm.
that are very encouraging, and just like keeping me up and stuff like that. Like my family, my friends, my girlfriend, like they're all amazing people,
Mm-hmm.
like keeping me afloat. Um,
Like you do
yeah.
great work. Keep pushing forward. Keep applying. Keep
y-
asking questions. You know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I've gotten a lot of reassurance, also from people who are in the industry, or I've talked to them. I'm like, hey, this is just where I'm at. Like, am I doing something wrong? And they're like, no. Sometimes this is just it's just what you go through.
Mm,
And it's like that people tell me this is what I had to go through. I went through the exact same steps where I
yeah.
was like hopped on a tour, didn't do another tour for 6 months, something like that.
Yeah, and they're just like, you just put in your time, and then it happens.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like it's a very like, you know, it can be hard to get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
And so it's like sometimes the ball rolls for a little bit, stops, keeps rolling, stuff like that. So it's just, you know, I try and keep, stay as optimistic as I can about it and just being like, hey, I know this is just it's what you got to go through
Mm-hmm.
in order to keep on pursuing and keep on going.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I'm super encouraged by your story personally because um you started on a dream journey.
yeah.
You didn't just say, "No, I'm gonna go do this thing, and then I'm gonna do this thing on the side." You kinda just you went all in,
Yeah.
and there were opportunities there, and now you're kinda in the dry season, and there'll be more opportunities that come, but, I mean, you've gone from, interning and just showing up
Mhm.
to actually getting the opportunity, saying yes. I mean, it takes a lot to, 1, communicate with your job and say, "Hey, don't fire me, please, don't." I'm like, "But I'm gonna do this thing. Can we
Ye
work something out?" And
yeah.
like you drove to a mystery crew, and then you went on tour, and you're like, "I've made it," and they're like, "Yeah, we'll talk to you later." And then more opportunities come up, and you just keep showing up and doing the thing, and then eventually you get your own tour,
Yeah.
and then you go international,
Mhm.
UK, Australia, and you have this mountaintop experience, and now you're kind of just back in the
Yeah.
full stop again. But to me, it's just like, man, that's just the ebbs and flows of a career,
Yeah.
and like I've experienced that with like, man, I feel like I don't even know what my purpose is. I don't know
Right.
even know what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm going to work, but am I like what's going on? Do I even have passion for that? I mean, I felt that even with this show of like I had a couple of months last year where there was not a single episode that was put out because nobody was saying yes to coming on the show. And so thank you for coming on the
Yeah.
show.
Of course.
It's encouraging for me. But what do you have in regards to advice for the person who is like you, but a few years behind, who is interested in
Mhm.
the audio engineering space, who has had that first gig, but hasn't gotten a call back in 3 months and is extremely discouraged? And like, what advice do you have for either that younger self, Wyatt, or someone else who wants to get in that industry? Or maybe he has dabbled in it and is super discouraged. Like, do you have any words of wisdom for that person?
Yeah. I mean, just for the first thing is just I mean, like, the main thing is like, just keep going for it, like, keep pursuing it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, one of my, like, most favorite, quotes is it's from a band, 21 Pilots when they won the Grammys.
Mhm.
The whole, like so they're kinda like their Grammy speech was about how, the band was watching the Grammys, like, so many years prior before they were, like, a band making money, and they
Right.
were they were watching the Grammys in their underwear and stuff like that, and they looked around at each other and they said, If we win the Grammys, let's watch the let's ex or if we win a Grammy,
Mhm.
let's let's accept it in our underwear." And so they are the lead singer and the drummer. They go up and they accept this Grammy in their underwear, and they said because you know that's what they wanted to do. And the quote that he said was like keep pursuing because anybody from anywhere can do anything,
Mm.
and this is proof of that. And so it's just like that's always been like something in my head was that like I'm like no matter where you are, what you're doing, like you can do it. Like you
Mhm.
can do what you want if you put your mind to it.
Yeah.
And so a more logistical thing about it
Yeah.
is like or like a real like actual advice is like if you have a little experience or if you have none, like go to places that um that are you know doing stuff with sound, and doing stuff like that, if that's a theater or if that's a church,
Mm.
or if that's you know or if that's a bar that's has live music and stuff
Mhm.
like that. you know go into those places, like go into a theater and be like, hey, just let me,
Use me.
yeah, exactly. Just use me. Like, I want to gain experience,
Right.
even if that's free labor, even if you're just doing it for free to help out, learn.
Mm.
Like, you know, do those things, just even if that's going in and patching cables, wrapping up cables, or if it's nothing to do with audio, but you're helping with like costumes and stuff
Mm.
like that, or anything like that. You're staying in that realm. You're building your character and your name and who you are, and
Right.
people will start to think good about you. And from there, like, the jobs come,
Mm-hmm.
and things come. If you are, going in just open handed and be like, hey, what can I do, to help? I just i i just want to learn. They will use you
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And it can feel very discouraging, because you're like, oh, I'm not in these arenas doing these big tours. I'm not with Taylor Swift. I'm just in this like stupid little bar.
Right.
But you got to start from somewhere, and that's an amazing place to start.
Well, you mentioned it earlier that there's also this huge part of band culture is the vibe check, or what you said, something I
The
can,
hang.
the hang.
Yeah.
It's like, if you have 2 engineers, 5 engineers, and one of them can hang and 4 of them are just good engineers, like, yes, you need to be professional. You need to be able to know your job and know your equipment and be able to do the function that you are being
Yeah.
hired to do. But there is a personality of diligence and respect and show up and good attitude that
Yeah.
is required just to get the work. And so I love that it's like just show up and be there. And that's you are displaying your attitude, which
Yeah.
is half of your resume.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, I think that was a big reason why I got to go back with Priscilla. I'm not like
Mm.
tooting my own horn or anything like that, being
I
like,
mean, you
oh,
can.
I
It's your
was
show.
like, I'm not being like, oh, I was such a great person, or like whatever. But I was like, but also like, you know, I can guarantee you, if I would have came in and done those 2 shows in the very beginning, just on a whim, just to help out, and I was a complete jerk, they wouldn't have wanted me back for
Mhm.
the few months. And then, if I was a complete jerk in those few months, I definitely wouldn't have been hired again.
Right.
Like, because of what I learned from Ben in the very beginning when I was his intern about, you know, having great hang and everything like that, and just being like, yeah, like, what else do you need? What else can I do for you? And everything like that. I definitely feel like through that was what got me back.
Yeah.
Like, you know, in certain ways, I don't think I had enough experience to be, thrown right into the fire in these giant arenas.
Mm.
I mean, but but what Priscilla and the rest of the crew saw was my hang.
You had
and
the hang.
and
Come
like,
on.
yeah, and like everything else I did, and just me being willing
Yeah.
to
Like,
help.
oh, we know why I
And,
can figure it out.
exactly. And it was like, and through that I gained so much experience, and it made me a better person, and it made me a better audio engineer, everything like that. And it's
Mhm.
like, so yeah, just going in and being like, hey, I'm here to serve you. Like, even if I'm doing some extra things that aren't in my job description, it's
Mhm.
like, that builds your name, it builds who you are.
Yes, sir.
So
So if we got people in our audience that are listening that need an audio engineer, who need a guy with good hang, like, where do they find you? How do people get in contact with Wyatt so that they can bring them on their tours?
oh man, um I don't know, you could probably, like, either, like, through my Instagram, you can
Okay.
just like contact me through that, like DM me, or my email.
Okay.
I'll leave my email in like the
We'll
description,
put
or
them in the description below.
wherever.
But
Yeah.
just reach out to Wyatt either through Instagram or through email. And yeah, I mean, do you have, I don't even know how this works for audio engineers. Do you have a portfolio of work?
I have a resume.
You have a resume.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we can include that as well.
There you go.
But
I can give that to you as well.
but my friend, to go from aspiring audio engineer to playing in church to getting your internship opportunities, first gigs, first tour experiences, going long term, going from 1099 W2, going international, to now trying to figure out what you're doing next with what tour, what gig. Like, what an inspiring journey of just
Yeah.
saying, hey, I'm going to keep showing up. I'm going to keep doing the thing. I'm going to go back to basics that my mentor told me. It's like, have a good hang, do good work, and it's going to work out.
Yeah.
Like, proud of you, buddy.
Thank you.
Like,
Yeah.
super excited to hear your story. I mean, I've heard bits and pieces, and you've stayed at my place a couple of times while you've
Yeah.
come to Nashville, and like, it's been an awesome journey.
Yeah.
But to hear it from start to finish of like how it's been for the last few years, like that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your story and for coming on the Business Everyday Show. And
Of course.
maybe we'll get a follow-up episode here in a couple of years when you are touring with Taylor Swift. Or, I mean, she's not country anymore, so I don't know what I'm trying to stick with that vibe.
Right.
But whoever you're with next, and see where you are, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
absolutely. Thanks for coming on today.